My name is Rod Lewis, and I will be the presenter today. This Termatrac training session will enable you to understand the benefits of the T3i and how it can help you become more professional in detection of wood-destroying insects and other pests. As a duty of care, Termatrac wish to advise the following safety precautions. 1. Never look into the radar head while the device is operating. Do not point the radar unit at anyone while the device is operating. And the third and most important point, do not point the laser beam at anyone while the device is operating. And lastly, please turn the unit off completely when not in use. The Termatrac T3i has two technological limitations when in radar mode, those being metallic materials and areas with high moisture. The limitation regarding metallic materials is quite simple. Radar does not penetrate anything metallic. If there are metallic surfaces involved, make sure that the area we are inspecting is between the device and the metallic surface. If there are any questions regarding the previous slides, please take this time now to ask the presenter. When you receive your T3i, this is how it will come. I'll point out here, behind this foam insert in the lid, is where all our reference manuals and our brand products are kept on CD. These are for your benefit. Please use them. Also, we'll point out here that even though the case is waterproof, the device itself is not. Also included in your Termatrac T3i, you'll find this fold-up cardboard box. This is for sending your device back when it's due for calibration to the calibration center nearest to you. The Termatrac comes with 3 modes, those being radar, thermal and moisture. Pictured below are where those moisture, radar and thermal sensors are located on the Termatrac T3i device. Please take note where they are. On the back of the Termatrac T3i, you will find this handy flip stand which holds the Termatrac on a 45-degree angle. This angle is ideal for tracking movement within carpet edge and base plates of walls. Anywhere where floor meets wall, you'll find this handy flip stand beneficial. The AA batteries you have been supplied with are a nickel metal hydride battery, and a fully charged set of batteries should give you up to 8 hours continuous use. There are 10 batteries supplied with the device, so batteries should not be an issue. On top of the Termatrac T3i device, you'll notice there are 3 buttons. These buttons have various uses. The button on the extreme right of the picture is the power button, or the on-off button. The middle button is called the mode button. When I'm referring to modes, I'm talking about the 3 sensors, thermal, radar and moisture. We call those modes, and we can change between modes via that central button, or alternatively via the PDA. The button on the extreme left of the picture is the snapshot button. So when we are capturing information or scan logs in the field, we can do it via the snapshot button. Please now ask questions of the presenter if you have any on the previous slides. This is the PDA, or Personal Digital Assistant. The arrows shown on the slide show us where the SD card, the USB connector and the cursor control and OK buttons are situated. It's very important to point out here that the PDA requires charging each and every night, the same as our mobile or cell phone. The PDA can't be overcharged, so it's left on for a couple of days. There is no issue. If the PDA is allowed to go completely flat, quite often when placed on mains power it will not take charge. So if this happens and the orange light doesn't come on when on charge, the PDA needs to be reset. This can be done by inserting the stylus in the reset button, which is situated halfway down under the on-off button. I would ask you now to insert the batteries into the device. As you can see, they go on opposite polarities, so match the plus with the plus and the minus with the minus. We can now turn our T3i device on, so please push the power button and a green light will appear. Now we can turn our PDA on. There are a few things to point out on the PDA. As you can see on the slide on the left, we have the date and the time. Make sure they are set correctly. If we are scanning and keeping information, these are the times and dates that it will remember. Directly under the date, we see there's a battery level indicator. That is the battery level of the PDA. I will ask you now to push Start in the top left hand corner of the screen. Having done that, the second screen will appear. We can now move down to T3i Operate and click on T3i Operate. The next screen to appear on the PDA is the one as shown, with New Address and Quick View, and down the bottom left hand corner we can see a radar tower with a red cross through it. This is our Connect icon, so please click the Connect icon. If your Termatrac T3i has not been purchased outright, the screen that will appear now is the one as shown, so as you can see, the radar tower is now emitting green. If your Termatrac T3i is a purchased unit, the screen you will be seeing is the green emitting from the radar tower with a lock icon. This tells us that it's password protected and we must enter a password. So what we do is we click on the lock icon. We then enter a password. The password that comes out of Termatrac is PASS, P-A-S-S, but you may change this to your own requirements at any time. Also, if you click the Remember Password box, the next time you turn the Termatrac on, it will not require a password. Once we have established connection between the PDA and the Termatrac device, the green light will now change to blue. This is telling us that we have established Bluetooth connection. It's important to remember when using the Termatrac that we always require the blue light. There will be other coloured lights depending on what mode we're in, but we need the blue light on. Also, the Bluetooth connection between the PDA and the Termatrac device should be up to 25 yards. Once we have established Bluetooth connection, the PDA screen will appear as shown. Down the bottom middle we can see there's a battery level indicator. This is the battery level of the AA batteries. There are two ways to use the Termatrac T3i. We can use it via a new address or a pre-entered job that's already on the PDA. By using this method, it will allow us to capture scan logs. The second way is via Quick View. Using just Quick View, it will allow us to use our three modes, but it will not allow us to do any record keeping. We will address it via Quick View first, so what I will ask you to do now is click on Quick View. Once we have clicked on Quick View, the mode screen will appear. Up the top of the screen you will see that it tells us Quick View and the scan saving is disabled, so we cannot capture logs, but we can use the modes. The first mode we'll choose is Radar, so click on Radar. The Termatrac Radar comes with an optional display, either line graph, bar graph or a combined graph. It's your personal choice which one you use. To have a look, click on Menu, bottom right hand corner, then Options. Then we click on the Radar tab. Once we have clicked the Radar tab, it will take us to this screen. As you can see, the line view graph has a drop down box beside it. Within that box you'll find bar graph, line graph, or combined. Once again, it's your choice. This presentation is based on the combined. Once we have selected radar on our mode screen, as you can see, we now have a blue light indicating Bluetooth connection and a green light indicating radar. When using the Termatrac on radar mode, it is important that we have the device as flush to the area that we are inspecting as possible. So now, in radar mode and the gain setting selected to gain setting 5, which is indicated in brackets on top of the screen, we will now simulate movement. When emitting radar, anything that reflects that radar will be transferred back, then onto the PDA. Also, during this simulation, it's very important to remember that this is only simulated. Actual termite activity may register completely differently. Now I'll ask you to place the device on a flat surface and wave your hand underneath it so the radar is reflected. The Termatrac also comes with an accelerometer. The sole purpose of the accelerometer is to indicate when we're not holding the device steady, or in fact there may be an outside influence. To simulate this, you can now move the T3i device itself and you can see the accelerometer line graph will move. When in the field, it's very important that the accelerometer has no influence whatsoever. So this is what we expect to see in the field when we've picked up activity. As you can see, the line graph and bar graph are moving, but the accelerometer is no influence whatsoever. We will now show you how the gain settings work and the benefits of having the gain setting on the Termatrac. On the picture on the left hand side, we can see that the gain set at 5. So what I'll ask you to do now is on gain setting 5, please simulate some movement, and please note how far the activity is showing on the screen. Having done that, I will now ask you to increase the gain to gain setting 8 as shown on the right hand side, and now simulate that same movement and you will see there's a dramatic increase on the display screen. It's important to point out here that the radar emission remains constant. We need to treat the gain setting like a volume control, so what we're doing, we're turning up the volume or increasing the sensitivity. As you can see here, the Termatrac is placed against the baseboard, and you can also see that I'm standing a couple of yards behind the Termatrac. The reason I'm doing that is I have the gain setting on gain setting 8. When we get up to those higher gain settings, it becomes very, very sensitive. It's that sensitive, in fact, it will even pick up movement laterally. So if I was standing directly beside that Termatrac, it would pick me up moving. So please, get into the habit of when using the Termatrac as shown, stand behind the device. On occasions, the Termatrac may need to be used as shown. Termatrac recommends not to hold the device in our hand if the gain setting is above 7. The reason for this is on those higher gain settings above 7 it becomes very sensitive. In fact, it's even more sensitive than the accelerometer. So we may be moving the device unbeknownst to us. If there is any movement, it should be detected immediately. Termatrac also have these tripods available for purchase. As you can see, they're useful in many situations. It is very important that we now make absolutely clear the purpose of the gain. It is important to take into account the density of the material you are inspecting at the time. Locating drywood termites, we may need to start on a high gain setting. General rule of thumb is the denser the material being inspected, the higher the gain setting is required. So in fact, when using the Termatrac on radar mode, it needs to be driven, adjusting gain settings accordingly. Please now take time to ask your presenter any questions you may have. Our second mode we're about to have a look at is our thermal sensor with laser guide. This technology is derived directly from thermal imaging camera technology, and it's important to point out that we need to understand how that works. How thermal imaging camera technology works briefly is something must be changing surface temperature for us to get an anomaly on the thermal camera and the thermal sensor with laser guide. Now, to return to our mode screen from our radar, simply press the OK button beside the big silver button down the bottom of the PDA. That will take us back to our mode screen. Once there, please push Thermal. When we're in thermal mode, a red light will appear. So we have the blue light for PDA connection and we have the red light for thermal. As shown here, once we are in thermal mode, the laser beam or laser pointer is illuminated. This is exactly what it says. It's a laser pointer. All our readings are taking on an average around that laser pointer. These readings are calculated on a scale of 12 to 1. So if I was to have the device 12 inches away from the surface I was taking a thermal reading, I'd be looking at an average of 1 inch. If I was back 2 foot, I'd be looking at 2 inches, and so on. So the thermal readings are taken on an average around the laser pointer. We now need to establish a reference point. To do this, simply tap in the big bar graph as shown. Once this is done, the Termatrac remembers the surface temperature of that reference point. All readings are then relative to that reference point. Red indicating more surface temperature and blue less surface temperature. So establish a reference point by tapping in the bar graph. Once this reference point is established, the Termatrac will emit a beep indicating that the reference value is set, and now all thermal readings will be displayed as a difference in value from this reference. Once we have established the reference point and the Termatrac has remembered the surface temperature, we can now simulate an increase in that temperature, quite simply by now pointing a laser pointer at our hand or our leg, and the PDA will indicate red. So what that's telling us, there is more surface temperature on our simulation than at our reference point. So if this happened in the field, so we've established a reference point and then the PDA indicates red, it's telling us that that area has more surface temperature. So there is an area of concern we must address. After establishing a reference point in the field, at our next point of inspection the PDA indicates blue, it's telling us there's less surface temperature there. So that would then take us back to the reference point as the area of concern, because that's where the more surface temperature is. When we are using the Termatrac in thermal mode, it's important to remember when doing an inspection in a home or a building, each time we go to an individual wall we must re-establish a reference point, because each individual wall will have a slightly different surface temperature, and the same applies to building type. So if we were doing a wall and then went to a window frame, we must establish a new reference point. Everything then is relative to that new reference point. Please now take the time to ask your presenter any questions that you may have. Our third and final mode of the Termatrac T3i is our moisture sensor. I will point out here it is different to our normal moisture meter that we are probably used to using. These indicate direct moisture. The Termatrac T3i moisture sensor works on relative moisture. So now to return to the mode screen from our thermal mode, press OK beside the big silver button, and once the mode screen appears, choose Moisture. As mentioned at the start of this presentation, there are two limitations on the Termatrac radar mode. The first one was metallic materials, the second one is high moisture. High moisture may absorb the radar, so in fact there may be movement there and there is none indicated due to absorption. But we can overcome this and we will show you how to do so. Now that we have selected moisture from our mode screen, the two lights on the device will be blue. Blue for Bluetooth connection and blue for moisture. When selected, the moisture sensor will go through a self-calibration. Just allow it to do this. As previously mentioned, the Termatrac moisture sensor works on relative moisture. So we need to establish a reference point. Having done that, the Termatrac will remember the moisture content of that reference point. All readings will be then relative to that reference point. So what I ask you to do now is shown we have the moisture sensor flush against a surface and we need to establish a reference point. We do that exactly the same way we did with our thermal. We simply tap in the big bar graph. So please tap in the big bar graph to establish a reference point. As we now know, the Termatrac moisture sensor works on relative moisture. So having established our reference point, we can now simulate an area with high moisture. So simply put the moisture sensor on your arm or your leg or your hand as shown, and the PDA will indicate blue, indicating more moisture than my reference point. As we've just simulated an area with more moisture than our reference point as shown on the left hand side, the PDA indicated blue, so blue for more moisture. On the picture on the right hand side we see that it's indicating red, so it's saying there's less moisture there. So in the field, if we'd established a reference point, our next point of inspection the PDA went red, it's saying there's less moisture there than my reference point, so that would then take me back to my reference point as the area of concern because there's more moisture there. We now know that areas with high moisture will absorb radar. What we're about to show you is when to know that it's high moisture. If we were using our moisture sensor on an inspection in the field, we'd establish ourselves a reference point and then we come across an anomaly of moisture, indicating blue as shown here. But as you can see, that blue is staying within the first graduation line on the bar graph. If this is the case, we don't consider it an area with high moisture. So if the blue stays within that first graduation, it's not an area with high moisture. So as shown on the previous slide, we had a moisture anomaly indicating blue but staying within that first graduation. So it's not considered an area with high moisture. So what we can do then is simply go to our radar mode and investigate that moisture anomaly. As you can see here, we've established a reference point, and on the picture on the left we can see that we have blue indicating high moisture and it's well and truly out of that first graduation. And on the right it's red, so the reference point is the area of concern, but on both occasions that is out of the first graduation, so it must be considered an area with high moisture. On the left where it's blue, on the right at the reference point. On this slide you can see that I've established a reference point and I've then discovered an area with high moisture. As shown on the PDA, it indicates that we have blue and it's out of that first graduation. So how do we overcome that? This is very, very simple and we will show you what to do. As you can see here, my area with high moisture. What I've done, I've gone to the left of it on the top slide, so there's no blue indicating whatsoever on the PDA. I've gone to the right of it, I've gone below it, and I've gone above it. So we've skirted that high moisture area. What we can do next is then go to our radar. Having found the extent of the high moisture area, we can then circumnavigate around that imaginary circle with our radar mode without any fear of absorption, because we are now on the extent of that moisture. One of the advantages of the Termatrac moisture sensor working on relative moisture, it is able to be used in any surface, no matter how moist that surface may be, as shown here, even being used on a tiled shower surface where a conventional moisture meter would be useless. We have now looked at the Termatrac T3i's 3 sensors using Quick View mode, so if you have any questions of the presenter, please ask now. Now we're at the New Address Quick View screen, we can start to record information by creating new addresses. On the left hand side you'll see there's a previously entered job on the PDA, but we now will create our own. So to do that, first of all we need to click on New Address. So click New Address. You can now see the screen is asking for some information. So what we need to do now is enter a new address in the address box. I will ask you to do that. It can be any address that you think of or location. A quick rundown on the keyboard is it's a normal QWERTY keyboard. If we want to go to numbers, we click on 1, 2, 3. And the same again to get back to lowercase. If we want to go to capital letters, we click Shift. If we want to go to space, we use the big space bar down the bottom of the... And if we want to delete, we use the big black dark arrow and the little bent arrow to go to the next line. So now could you please enter an address or location in the address box. Once we have done that, we now ask for some more information. As you can see, we have a job number, customer name and operator ID. Now I'll ask you to put something in those. Job number could be how you run your business, it may be an invoice number. Customer name is very important, and the operator ID, that's been put there because we have a lot of companies with more technicians than Termatrac T3i's, so all we need to simply put in there is our initials. Once you've done that, you will see there's another 2 boxes, building category and job type, and you will see they both have asterisks attached. So what I'll ask you to do now is to fill those boxes out. You can also see that they both have drop downs, so we've pre-entered some choices for you. If none of these suit, please enter your own. It must be noted here that building category and job types are mandatory, so this cannot be saved unless these are filled out. So please fill out those boxes. Once we have entered that information required and press save, we will see we will end up in the mode screen. This time we can see the location or address that we've entered is shown on the top of the PDA. We can now choose which mode that we want to capture this information on, or scan log. Today we'll choose radar, so please click on radar. What I will now ask you to do, as we did previously when looking at the radar mode, is to simulate some movement. But before we do this, it must be known that when recording information, it always records the previous 10 seconds. So if there is activity found, just let it happen for about 10 seconds before we save log. Also, very important, that this is only simulated movement, so actual terminal activity may register completely differently. So what I'll ask you to do now is simulate some movement as shown, and after approximately 10 seconds, save log, bottom right hand corner. Once we save that log, the next screen that we will see is shown on the top of the PowerPoint. As you can see now, the gain control has taken itself all the way up to the top, and we can see that it's telling us the view is 10 seconds. So that information there on the line graph is the entire 10 seconds of that recorded activity. But we can look at this more closely. To do that, we now need to take the gain control all the way down to the bottom of the scale until it's on gain setting 1. Now that we have taken the gain control down to gain setting 1, we can see at the top that it's now saying the view is 1 second. So that's the first 1 second of recorded activity. Now we can look at this even more closely by dragging the slide down the bottom from left to right. That will enable us to have a look at that information 1 second at a time. During this scan log, if there are any influence from the accelerometer, I would advise you to scan again. If not, save log. Once we have saved the scan log, another window will open up. In this we need to put a bit more information. As you can see, they're all drop-down boxes, so we need to fill these out. Underneath those boxes you'll see we have a compass point. Now this is an option. It does not have to be used, but it's there if you choose. On the bottom right hand corner we see a text note. If we open this text note, another window will appear with a keyboard. I would advise you or encourage you to take full advantage of this text note box, in which as much information can be put to tell us exactly the location where that information was captured. Once we have done this, we need to save the text note, and then we need to save again. This time we'll be saving all that information, including the scan log. So now, firstly, save the text note, then save again. Once we have saved that information including the scan log, you'll see it has returned us to the mode screen. Now on the radar mode we can see that there's a scan icon attached. This is telling us that we have a scan log attached to the radar mode. We can take as many scan logs on radar as we wish, but there will be only ever one scan icon. We can also add a new job to any existing location. Once it's been uploaded from the PC to PDA, we simply highlight that job and then click on New Job. Now we can attach a new job to a current location. Maybe the customer's name has changed. Perhaps it's a different operator. Whatever the instance, please readjust and then go Done. We can also access information that's already been done at an existing location. To do this, firstly we highlight the job in the PDA, then we click on Jobs. This information is shown as such. December 09 we were there doing an initial. And also you can see that we do have scan logs attached to this job because the scan logs button is highlighted. To have a look at these scan logs, click on Scan Logs. Once we have clicked on Scan Logs, we can now see the scans that were actually captured on the day. As you can see, there was a moisture, a temperature and a radar. We can now look at those scans by choosing one of our choice. I will choose radar and then go View Log. What we will now see is the information was captured on radar. As you can see, once again it has taken itself to 10 seconds. But we can still have a look at that more closely by taking the gain control down to 1 and sliding from left to right to enable us to have a look at it 1 second at a time. You can also see that we can read where that scan log was captured because the text note was used in this instance. Although the Termatrac T3i is the world's #1 termite detector, it is still only an inspection aid or tool. You are the pest professional and your expertise is vitally important in the inspection process. We have now concluded the Termatrac T3i training session. Please take this time to ask your presenter any questions that you may have. I wish to thank you for your attendance today. I hope this Termatrac T3i training session has been informative and beneficial in the correct method of using the Termatrac T3i, the world's leading termite detection.